Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to What I Wish I Knew online classes with ASHC, the Associated Students of Highline College. And we're your student body government. My name is Kayla Pezzolano. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm the Speaker of Caucus.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jarmaine Santos. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I am the ASHC president.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hector Pina, and I use he, him pronouns, and I am the student body vice president.
Thank you, everyone, for being here and being a part of our winter 2021 ThunderWeek event, and welcome back. Before we begin, I wanted to share some tips to enhance today's program experience. Because we have a lot of participants during this event, we are keeping all participants muted unless given permission by a host to unmute. However, you are welcome to and encouraged to use the chat feature throughout the event. I also recommend that you switch your view to speaker view at the top right corner. This program is being recorded and will be available on the CLS YouTube page in a few days. We would also appreciate it if you could check in using our Google form. The URL will be posted in the chat. By checking in, you help us keep track of how many students we are serving with these programs to get to know a little bit more about you. When you check in, you can also sign up to have center swag mailed to you. You can sign up for one item each event you attend this week. Thank you for your support.
And now we would like to take some time to acknowledge the land that we are on. And so we would like to now collectively take a moment to acknowledge all Indigenous and First People of the land and space in which we live and breathe. For our community at Highline, we recognize that we are on occupied Duwamish, Coast Salish, Muckleshoot, and Puyallup lands, and we want to thank all relations and tribes today as we prepare to hold space as a community. We recognize that all of us are joining this conversation from different areas, so we also want to invite you to reflect and thank Indigenous and First People of the land and spaces in which you are coming from. Thank you. And now I just want to do a quick overview before we really get into this event. We will be touching on how to be successful in your online classes, how to navigate through a virtual environment, accessing different resources, and then at the end, we'll have a question and answer / open discussion. So if you have a question, then you can put it in the chat or hold on to it so that we can hopefully answer it at the end of this event. So the first thing that we are going to be talking about is organization and habits. The first thing that's really important in an online environment, because we aren't going to like a physical classroom, is to set a good environment. And this will help you transition between like going to bed and starting to do your work, or when you have like free time and starting to do your schoolwork. It creates a good separation. And to do this during class, I think it's good to have like all of your class materials ready. So any notebooks you have, or if you have any files that you need to pull up on your computer, that you have that ready to make sure that you're ready for class. Just like if you were in a regular classroom, you'd have like your backpack and everything. So kind of just trying to get closer to that. And for me, and I know a lot of other people, having a drink also helps, which can be like tea, coffee, water, and it'll help you stay hydrated. And maybe having like a cup of tea will help you help your brain know that, okay, now it's time to start your work. And So having a drink during class is also really good and something that is really important, but very hard to do. Like I admit last quarter, I might have been in bed for a few classes, but it's really good to not be in your bed. It'll also help like afterwards when you actually need to do like work, you're not just like sitting, listening to a Zoom call, you'll be like ready to work. So yeah, try your best not to be in bed this quarter. I know it's hard and it's really tempting, but I think it's really good just to set a good environment to help you set up to be successful. And some things to do before class or when you aren't doing like class stuff, kind of just to again, like set you up for success is to organize your space. And this means like your physical space, you know, making sure that you keep your desk or table or wherever you do your studies like as tidy as possible. But this also means your online space. So making sure that if you use Google Drive, that your Google Drive is organized, you know, it has folders. I think that taking time to do that really helps with making sure that like you know where your assignments are or you know like how to navigate your space because we are working on you know your laptop or your computer a lot, then if like files just start like piling up on like your desktop screen or something, it could be like really overwhelming. So I think that having your online space organized can really help. And then also having a good note-taking system also helps. And knowing this um, before classes could help, but also like figuring it out during the classes could help. And this includes like taking notes by hand or using your laptop, like typing out notes, just figuring out what's good for you. I think that all of these will really help with creating a good environment and setting you into like the mindset of, okay, I'm going to school now, like no distractions, you know. And the next one is to have a planner. Once again, because we are doing class online, it's a little bit more like of an abstract feel, I feel like. So having a planner and a schedule is really good, especially for classes that are fully online. So if you don't have the structure of having a Zoom class and meeting up with your teacher every day or like every other day, then you have to hold yourself accountable to like doing your work and staying on top of things. And I think that having a planner really helps you do this. So there are different forms of planners. You could have like the regular physical book planner that you like write in, you can like highlight, and or you could use some online things. I use Notion is something that I kind of like discovered, and it's really cool if you want to like look at that. I feel like it's kind of Google, but in one like compact form. But you could also use Google Calendar or your phone calendar or Outlook, which those last two are really good if you want to share your calendar with somebody else, if you're doing meetings. Yeah, it's really good to have a planner. I highly suggest it, and having like a good schedule that you know, you don't have to have like, okay, like at 7 a.m., like I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna do my classes. It could be like a rough schedule too, but having some type of schedule is really good to hold yourself accountable and make sure that you do your work, and to make sure that you're not like pushing it back all the time. And the last thing I want to touch on is some good habits to have. So checking Canvas daily, sometimes multiple times a day, is a really good habit to have because some teachers update their Canvas daily or multiple times a day. Like last quarter, I had a teacher who wouldn't put assignments up until like the day that they were due. So it's really good to get the habit of, checking the Canvas daily to make sure that you're not missing out on anything, or making sure that you're caught up on all of the announcements. Because a teacher could also put out an announcement that says like, you don't have to do this assignment, it's extra credit now. Like you want to be on top of that stuff. So checking Canvas daily and is a really good habit to have. Also a good habit to have, which is another one that's like really hard. I feel like this is the same as not being in bed, is not using your phone, because you can turn your camera off, or you can like have your phone on the side and you can just be like doing something else. But if you really do want to be like more successful this quarter, not having your phone around you is a good idea. But if you do need it, like obviously it's okay. Some people need it to be next to them just because they might get like an emergency call or something. So having it near you is okay, but really try to refrain using your phone. This includes like when you're in a Zoom class, but it also applies to when you're doing homework or doing anything like school related. This will help you with distractions, like making sure you're not distracted or anything like that. And it helps you keep focus. And another thing that I found was really important was to take breaks away from your screen. There's this thing that I did last quarter, which is like taking a walk whenever I can, just to make sure that I'm not stuck in my room, like always on a screen. I think that it really helps you clear your mind, and it helps your eyes from all of that like screen strain. And it might help with like Zoom fatigue, which is a real thing that people deal with. So taking breaks away from the screen is something that's really important and something that you really need in order to take care of yourself during this online quarter, because there is a thing as like too much screen time. And don't go taking a break, calling it a break if you're on your phone. That's you're still on a screen, and that's kind of like the same thing. But like you can be on your phone, but try to be outside more, or like cook a meal or pick up something that doesn't have like a screen related to it. I think that'll really help with just kind of decompressing away from all of this like online stuff. And yeah, I'm gonna pass it on to Kayla now.
Yes, thank you for that, Jermaine. I'm definitely guilty of a few of those. And I know if you have kids or siblings, or you might be guilty of it yourself. Like I've seen my brother full on in a class and his head's like this with the phone, like not even paying attention. So I'll definitely be taking some of those tips as well, and maybe we could pass them on. So we're going to be talking about in this part, communication and community, which I feel like are two important pillars of your success in navigating through a virtual environment, and really just learning how to find what you need and get those results. So before we get into that, I wanted to ask what works for you, and really start with this question and think about it, because before we get in how to be successful, we need to know what makes us successful. So what type of learner are you? Are you a visual learner, auditory, reading and writing, kinesthetic? Are you hands-on? Me personally, I'm an auditory learner. So what I do and how this helps me is I make sure I get e-textbooks. And when I have my e-textbooks, I'm able to have them read out loud to me. And it makes it a lot easier for note-taking. And I'm able to process the information better. And say if you're a kinesthetic learner, you may want to get a physical textbook. So you have that there and you can actually write down on some post-it notes, and it's really going to make all the difference. And from there, take into consideration what time of the day are you most productive. Like for me, I'm most productive in the morning. So I'm making sure, and let me tell you, I am not a morning person. I have spent this past week preparing to go back to school, and I've been taking melatonin every night to make sure that I'm in bed at 9, at sleep at 10, so I can get up early, because that's when I'm getting the most results. And what are your habits? Jermaine talked about some good habits to apply, and giving the type of, say, learner you are, and just the things that you notice that make you successful, are implementing them. And if you're not, what can you do to start implementing them? Like me, I made sure I bought some melatonin and I'm taking it. I'm in bed by 9. These are some small practical things that you can do for whatever works for you. And with that, are you having trouble with classes? And if you are, you can say, take what you learned about yourself and communicate that with your instructors. This is so imperative. Make sure you're communicating with your instructors and let them know if you're having any difficulties. Also, don't wait to the last moment. Address problems when they arise. Instead of waiting 2 weeks down the line when you're submitting assignments late or you're having difficulties and it's the end of the quarter, at that point, it may be a little bit too late. So you want to make sure whenever you're having a problem, you're talking to your professor and letting them know so that they can help you, and also they can take that in consideration and then maybe reach out to you and provide help. And I see in the chat box, Laura, she said, awesome tip, Kayla. And yes, definitely shout out to Laura, because she used to be my professor and I learned that from her. So, and then the last tip, attend drop-in hours. Take advantage of the time faculty and staff set aside for you, because it's there. You might as well reap those benefits. And just because we're online, that doesn't mean community has to stop. It's still out there. You just have to make sure that you're going and attending the office hours. And if you have a question, don't be scared. Even if you're the only person in the drop-in hours, that's fine. So next, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and just talk about how everything that we need is really at our fingertips starting at Highline. So you can find a lot of these resources. Can you see my screen good? Okay, so the first thing that I wanted to show you guys where you can find community and support is this academic support tab. This is really like your one stop of everything that you need, and I want you to get familiar with it. If you can take one thing away from what I'm saying, it's definitely to get familiar with Highline's website. So on here, you can find a list of all of the services that Highline offers, and there's a bunch of them. So whatever you're looking for, it's going to be there. Say you need help with computers, printing and copying, that's there, and you can even get a technology loan. Or if you're looking for community, you can go to the Center for Leadership and Service. And while that loads, so on here, there's a list of events that go on at the center, as well as you can click right over here and find a list and directory under clubs and organizations. And here are a list of clubs that you can join. ASL Club, Arabic Club, Crew Club, Disney, and the list just goes on. And not only do teachers have office hours and drop-in hours, but so does all of the other departments at Highline. So like we're all familiar with financial aid, right? And that office used to have a ticket and a line. You could still go ahead and do that. So if you go to contact us, you can see here, there are a list of drop-in hours and what days and times they're available. And I assure you that everybody throughout Highline, they have drop-in hours. And if they don't have drop-in hours, then they have, you can email them and make an appointment, and there's a place for that. Also, any upcoming events, you're gonna find right here on the homepage. So if you're looking for something to do, you have a little bit of a dry week, right down here in events, you can see everything that's coming up. And if you click on more events, it's going to list them out as far as they go. And another important thing is your student email. And it may seem tedious and you may receive a bunch of emails, but in here, all the resources that you may be looking for are being sent to you. You just have to open those email. Like right here, we have MLK Week, which is a bunch of events, and the Winter Leadership Retreat is coming up. You can sign up for that as well. Also, Campus Views sent out an application for scholarships within the campus apartment buildings and housing. So that's all there for you. Those resources are there. You just have to go and access them. And these are some of the places that you can. And Hector will talk about some more places you can access resources.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back from your break here. And as you know, my name is Hector Pina and I am the Vice President. And today I'm going to be sharing with you some resources that you may or may not know that are at your disposal as a student at Highline College. So one of the first things is going to be the Highline College Foundation. And this is something I recently stumbled upon, and that is that Highline College has a foundation for the students, and it is itching to give away money to their students. A few examples of the Highline College Foundation is that if you were a graduate from high school from Renton, Tequila School District, or any of those cities really, you are eligible to apply to certain scholarships. The scholarships that are going on right now, at least for the foundation, is their deadlines, I believe, are sometime in May. So you do have plenty of time for it, but I still highly recommend to get on it as soon as possible. And the Highline College Foundation is a great resource to use, especially if if every quarter if you're applying to loans or things like that. This is another great way to earn some money and not to apply for loans and be into debt. The other one is the Highline Academic Achievement Scholarship. And this is a scholarship that happens every quarter. There was one that happened in winter quarter for the people that applied. There's one that's gonna be coming up for spring quarter, for winter quarter, and spring quarter and so on. And this happens every quarter, right? This is $1,500 or essentially a free quarter to have, and it's all your tuitions paid and everything like that. And so I just wanted to make sure that this is out there for you guys. Then this happens again every single every single quarter. Take advantage of it. You are a Highline student, and this is something that the Highline College itself is offering to the students to better support you guys. The next one is the Washington Board. This one is a Washington State run website, it's a .org, and it also has other resources they can use for scholarships. This is a little bit more broad and it's more for Washington State residents, but it's also worth to take a look at that and see if there's scholarships that may be right for you. The next one is FastWeb. FastWeb has a huge library of scholarship just waiting to be grabbed by students, right? This is more on a national level, and it is a .com, so it's fastweb.com. But it has a vast majority of scholarships ranging from companies that are offering like Coca-Cola, McDonald's, certain companies, for example, like Microsoft, if you're into that, if you're going to like CS Field, and things like that. So take advantage for FastWeb. I just wanted you guys to know for that. The next one is something that you guys are probably very familiar with, and that's the FAFSA and the WAFSA. So for the FAFSA, that stands for Free Application for Student Aid, right? This is the federal agents or website where you can apply to get financial, right? You get, you can get loans, you can get grants, not scholarship, but grants, like the Pell Grant. And it is overall, this is something that you should be doing at least every year for like the 2021-22 school year. And this is for usually aimed for like US citizens, right? To use, but this is something that I just want to reiterate that this is something that that you should be doing every year at the very least. And the next one is something that you may not also be familiar with. It's the WAFSA, which is the Washington State level of the FAFSA, right? So this is more oriented towards students that are undocumented, as in you are not a US citizen and that you are not receiving, federal aid of any sort, right? So when you go to the website itself first, it'll ask you a couple questions to see whether or not you're going to be eligible for the WAFSA. Again, this is only state level, right? So it's only for residents that live in Washington State that you can apply for this, especially if you're undocumented, if you're from a different country or anything like that. That this is another great resource. And these are people that are not eligible for the FAFSA, but are eligible for the WAFSA. The other thing is for searching online. There's still a lot of scholarship up there that are just waiting to be grabbed for students that people don't even know, right? So if you're majoring, for example, in a high demand field such as a STEM field, or you come from a minority group, a woman of color, or simply left-handed, you might be surprised to know that there are scholarships specifically for these things, right? And to be eligible for these scholarships, all you really have to do is, for example, if you know that you're left-handed, you are automatically eligible for this. You just have to apply for it, and chances are you're probably going to be getting it. For example, if you Google woman engineering scholarships or grants, right? Just right on Google. There'll be companies and organizations that will be offering them, right? How I spoke about it a little bit earlier, where I said like Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Microsoft has all these kind of scholarships that are just waiting to be taken advantage by students, right? One thing I will say is be careful of scams online, right? If there's any kind of application process where it asks you for your credit card or give us money in some sort of way or whatever, stay away from them. No scholarship, no grant, no anything like that's going to ask you to give them money in order for you to secure a scholarship for a year or something like that, right? So just make sure that you're also aware of that, that it is out there. And the next thing we talked about is for on and off campus resources. So as you know, there's a lot of things going on right now, right? Out in the world. And this, of course, is affecting our mental health, right? Did you know that Highland College offers on-campus licensed therapists, right? And you can make an appointment that is free, right? This is something that kind of gets, overlooked by students, right? Where if you are, if you are a student at Highland College and then you are suffering from, anxiety or depression or something like that, we want you to know that there are resources for you to utilize and help you. For the mental health counseling, you can make an appointment. They have drop-in hours. They have workshops as well for meditations, and also making an official website or appointment with these counselors, right? And it's just a great resource to use because I know that there's a lot of things going on, and that we want you to make sure that these are there for you. The next thing is a tutoring center. So the tutoring center is mostly aimed for students that are taking, writing, math classes or science classes, and kind of thing. And just know that, if you're taking a class online, just know that you are not alone. There's plenty of other students that are also probably struggling with, sort of math problems or writing or science in general, right? that you can go to the tutoring center and be paired with a tutor to help you get through this, right? You don't have to do this alone. And just want to make sure that this is a resource for you, that we have the tutoring center and that it is there for you to utilize. The other thing is MESA and TRIO. Again, these are other organizations that you can use to utilize to, you know, build community and also just be part of an organization where MESA is mostly aimed towards STEM related focus fields. And yeah, so those are there for you. And then the last part of it is going to be the Access Center. So the Access Center is going to be aimed for students as a resources with disabilities, right? You can go to their website and you can talk to someone that can help you, you know, give you tools that you can use to give you a better experience in attending Highline College, right? Again, it's our aim for disability students who need a little bit more accommodations to be successful in Highline College, right? And that's something that Highline College wants you to do, is to be as successful as possible. The other one is Career Court. So Career Court is something that is aimed for students that are not that are on the edge of wondering what they want to do with their career, right? Because the Career Court is something that's not very well known to students, but it is there for you. And it pretty much explores what possibilities of careers that you might want to do, right? Whether that's, you know, becoming a nurse or major subject in business or something like that, that is there for you. And that's something great to utilize. The other one is community resources. Community resources is mostly pertaining to like mental health clinics, right, in your area, right? And you don't have to utilize the Highline College therapists or counselors. That there are, you know, clinics in your area that you may not know of that you can definitely utilize. And that's something that I want to put out there. And the last one is health insurance, right? Even still today, there are, you know, families that are struggling with, you know, financially and things like that, that the Apple Health, you know, Washington State run site has ways to help you get insured, right? When people get dropped from their jobs, right, they don't have income, and so sometimes they don't have insurance, or they kind of forget that they need to be, you know, applied to insurance, right? And so I do want to make sure that you guys have this as a way to get health insurance. Overall, it's a good way. It's a good thing to always have health insurance. I learned this the hard way when a certain accident happened to me, and I wasn't insured at the time. So, and I got hit with a $2,000 bill, but that's another story. Next is we're going to go ahead and open up the floor to everyone here for anyone that has any general questions about the topics that we covered here. You can go ahead and utilize the chat box. And if you want to speak your question, go ahead, and there should be an email emote, sorry, I can't say it, on your screen where it says reactions. And that way we'll know to unmute you, and you can speak out your question if you have specific questions about certain things. Otherwise, you can go ahead and use your the chat box to ask any question you guys want to ask.
To raise your hand, if you have the older version of Zoom, you can go to participants, and then over towards the bottom, you'll see an option to raise your hand. But if you have the newer version of Zoom, if you just go into reactions, there should be an option to raise your hand there. Or if anybody wants to talk about maybe a challenges that they're facing during this time, going online and having your classes all be virtual can be difficult. So
Okay, so we have one question from Sina, I don't know if I pronounced that right, I'm sorry. She says, on the scholarships, is there an income level requirement on any of those? I do not have student loans.
So that really depends on the eligibility of the scholarships, right? Most, at least most scholarships are merit-based, right? So if you have a 3.0 or higher or 3.5 higher, it'll tell you in the eligibility part of the application, right? If whether or not you qualify for it. But most of the scholarships are merit-based, right? It's not income-based or anything like that. So you can keep applying to these scholarships. If if you're making a lot of money, you just want to have more money, you can definitely do that. Grants, on the other hand, is the one where I think it's based on income level, and student loans are something that I guess you apply for and get if you don't have the money right away to pay for the classes and textbooks and things like that. So for scholarships, it's not income based, it's merit based mostly, and some of them are also like major, like what kind of major that you're choosing to do based on.
Yes, and to add on to what Hector said, a lot of these scholarships, they'll list the requirements when you go to the website. And then specifically, if you go to washboard.org, you make a profile there, and they'll, based on the information you provided, they'll give you recommendations, like whether, like he was saying before, if you're a woman, that may be one of the requirements, or an income requirement, or maybe it's giving opportunities to underrepresented communities. So if there may be a cultural requirement.
Yeah, those are really good. So some of the other ones, I think Ying was kind of following up on the last question. He says, I am now in the Achieve program, and Seattle schools pay my tuition, and after this I might get financial aid, but I wouldn't be in the Achieve program, and I would qualify for financial aid, if that helps. Also, Miriam says, have anyone else experienced difficulties with the way it seems like business as usual when we are in the middle of a pandemic? So, yeah, that is really weird how kind of people are, I feel like it's kind of people trying to grasp at what life was before. So kind of like not ignoring, but not paying as much attention to the pandemic. But it is weird because there is like a whole pandemic going on. Sometimes you forget about it.
Yeah, I've personally noticed, since we're now in maybe like our third or fourth quarter, depending on whether you did summer or not and when you came in, that at first there was a lot of understanding. But now, as you know, we're getting used to it, that kind of understanding dissipates, even though we're still going through a pandemic and we're still facing the same challenges we were at the beginning, that there's kind of a lapse of understanding and maybe even communication between, like, I have understanding with my instructors moving online, but sometimes the instructors may not have an understanding with me having to now move along with the curriculum. I was wondering, Miriam, if you wanted to speak about your experience since you asked the question. I can ask to unmute.
So the reason that I brought it up, I am pretty much trying to get as many people as I can to make letters and to send them to Dr. Mosby's office. I've personally have been in school since the beginning of the pandemic. I started college at the beginning of the pandemic. So I personally did not sign up for, online classes, but I do understand the situation that we're in. And at first, yes, there was a lot of understanding and there was a lot of teachers willing to work with you. But after doing a little bit of investigative work, I've realized that it's the system. The teachers are stressed out. Staff is stressed out. I've seen staff member break down and cry. So I think that we need to come together as, students and write these letters. That way they can take these letters to our senators, to our government, and change these policies, because we are in the middle of a pandemic and it doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. I know that when we go out in the streets to grocery shopping or whatever, it seems like, we're not. But then you see the rising numbers. I don't know about you, but I've already lost a member to this pandemic and I don't want to lose more people. And I think we need to fight against this. We need to stand up for each other. We need to, tell them how we're feeling, because they do work for us. The school is supposed to be working for us. We are paying for these services. So yes, we need to voice our concerns to everybody. And me particularly, I failed one quarter and then I had problems getting funding. And then I had to, scrabble along, figure out where I was going to get funding to go back to school when I got sick for almost 3 weeks and was unable to catch up with work. So that's why I brought it up, because it's like, it shouldn't be this way. If I got sick, and I have the paperwork to prove it, which is even ridiculous that at this point I have to, bring paperwork and be like, look, yes, I got sick, that they wouldn't be understanding, or they wouldn't, be like, okay, we're going to let you drop this quarter or let you drop this whatever, and we'll pick up wherever you left off. But I don't see the understanding. And what I see is that everybody's frustrated and stressed out. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. It is such a problem, I feel like, that hasn't really properly been addressed. So speaking like on behalf of ASHC, I think that we would love to work with you on getting these letters sent out and bringing more awareness to this problem and trying to find better solutions or ways to help both students, staff members, and teachers, and kind of create like an understanding and community, to help you out with when these things happen. You're right, like a student shouldn't have to worry about being sick and then like also not failing class and then failing class and then not being able to pay for college and like getting the funds. So we definitely want to help you out with this and we want to spread awareness. So I just want to say like, thank you so much for bringing this to our attention, and we would love to work with you. So if you could just send us your email or something. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yes, and also like a part of our job as ASHC is we want to hear from you, and we're going to listen to your concerns. So I would recommend attending one of our student council meetings, because they're dedicated to that specific purpose. And then we also have, because you're right, you do pay your tuition, and part of that is you have access to these programs. So I'll put that information in the chat box, and as well as the Zoom link.
And I see a lot of people on the chat are saying thank you as well for bringing this up. Sina, again, I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing the name right, said that she lost a family member, or they lost a family member on their reservation from COVID, and their mom is far from us, and it is difficult. And I definitely get it. Like my dad has asthma and he got COVID. So it was like a really big scare for us. And my 2 other sisters got COVID. So I also had to like help take care of them. So it was also hard balancing school, but I can imagine like losing a family member to COVID.
Charmaine,
I just wanted,
oh, I was just gonna say there was a question earlier from Mac, if somebody wanted to scroll up and address that question.
Okay, I see it. So they asked, how do the drop-in hours on campus work? And do I need to book ahead or show up at a certain time and wait?
I can answer. So usually, if you're talking about drop-in hours with your instructor, your professor, they usually should have it listed on the modules. Like when you click on the courses, right? It'll show you like all the assignments when they're due and everything. Somewhere along the top, it should have the listed, or at least in the syllabus as well too, when they give it out to you, of the listed times and dates that your professor is available for drop-in hours. I believe you can also send them a message saying, hey, are you able to meet, on Wednesday at 12 or 1 or something? Chances are that they will most likely be available at the time to answer any kind of questions, right? Again, you can always ask to meet with your instructor, right? But usually most instructors usually have their drop-in hours listed on the courses on what you're taking, right? So that's that.
Yes, and it's also usually like case-by-case basis. So every department you can either make an appointment with them or they have specific drop-in hours. But just by browsing Highline's website and going to the specific department's webpage, you'll be able to find that information there. And if they don't have drop-in hours, it should say book an appointment here or has an email so that you can contact somebody and find out and make those arrangements.
Yeah, and again, it doesn't hurt to ask and email in your teacher, right? If you have a question about textbooks or courses or anything like that, it doesn't hurt to ask your teacher about certain issues that you may be having, right? And I'm sure the teacher will be happy to assist you in whatever way that they can, right? So always ask if you can.
Mercedes says, I am dealing with COVID too with my asthma. So it's really hard for me right now. I am recovering right now. Does anyone have any recommendations for me to help with my recovering?
Yeah, that's a tough one, and I appreciate you sharing. In terms of recovery, I would go back to those two pillars of like communication and community. If you're having a rough day, if you're not feeling the best, communicating with your loved ones, your instructors, your doctors, and then really just reaching out if you need that help and trying to find whatever it is that you like to do. Like I can recommend something like I like yoga and breath work and just being mindful. Even like the little things, your diet is always a big thing when it comes to your health. But like I was saying during my slides, like whatever it is that works for you and what makes you happy, because your mindset too is also going to be going to help you through your recovery. And ASHC is here, and I'm sure all the other outreach centers on campus, the center, like just really being connected, I feel like would possibly help too. And if you ever want to talk to anybody, we have those lists of resources here.
Yeah, and also to follow what Dustin's saying was in the chat here is definitely keep close in touch with your medical team as well. COVID is still a very scary thing still, and as Dustin was saying, please keep in close contact with your medical health team. So for Tanya, Tanya said, I am new here to this place and it's very confusing to me. My experience thus far is figure it out on your own. How do we get this recording after it's complete?
It should just be posted on the CLS YouTube, which Amy just put on in the chat. Thank you, Amy. It'll take a few days, but eventually it'll be on there. And I think that Marianne wanted to say something.
Oh, just for, she says she has asthma. My daughter has asthma as well. And one of the things that I would recommend is a humidifier, but definitely staying in touch with your doctors. It's a better recommendation. And ultimately, you know, mental health is extremely important. When we're stressed out, our body knows it and you will have more breakdowns. So peace of mind is also very important.
Thank you. And Mac asks, is there a possibility to meet one-on-one on Zoom with a career coach, or is it just the online workbook?
To answer your question, Mac, I'm not entirely sure how the career coach work, but I believe if you go to the website and log in and everything, I believe it'll give you a little bit more details on how to get, pausing and get in touch with a career coach. But I would start off first with, logging in and exploring the webpage a little bit, and then going from there. You can always also get in contact with your academic advisors, right? This is something that at least I highly recommend doing every quarter to make sure you're on track to, whatever major you're wanting to choose. And you can do that through the highline.edu website, right? If you go to the website, it'll say how Kayla was showing a little bit earlier, academic support. Once you highlight your mouse over it, it opens up a little bit tab and it'll tell you all the academic support that you have, right? It's all listed there. And one of them is going to be academic advisors, mental health counselors and things like that. So it's all there for you. And one of the, at least reading from the chat here, is that I know there's a lot of new students this quarter, a lot of running starts students here, and a lot of you, how I believe one of you were saying that, we are still online and that, and that you're starting off and like, hey, good luck on figuring things out on yourself. And that's something that we are, trying our best to address and making sure that, we want to be here to help you navigate the website and Highline College itself for the resource that you want, right? So the best way to start off is at the very least the highline.edu website, and then navigate. But again, you can always reach out to instructors to get more detailed information about certain things that you might need.
Mercedes and Sierra both asked about the CARES Act, if there's another opportunity this quarter for the CARES funding.
I don't know very much about for the CARES fund. I believe it was at least on a legislative level, it was like a one-time thing for students. There was a recent thing, I don't know the exact details of it, but there was the $600 direct deposit right from the government, right? But also there is detailed information on, part of it went to schools directly. So I believe that's also worth investigating the details about that.
Yes, and if I could just add on and saying, like, we really don't know about the CARES Act funding, and there are resources though when it comes to Highline has their emergency fund. So just keep a lookout on your student email, because that sort of stuff is sent out. And when it comes to the CARES Act funding, as last time, the school did send out emails when it came back around. So hopefully it does, but as of right now, we don't know. That's the honest answer.
Okay, well, I just wanted to quickly close out here. Thank you all for attending our program today. In the chat box, you will find a link for our ThunderWeek feedback form. Your feedback is critical in enhancing our programs, so we will greatly appreciate your thoughts. And a reminder that if you did not check in when you arrived, please do so before you leave. It's just really quick. That way we can keep track on, the number of attendees that came to our event. And be sure to join us for more ThunderWeek events this week. Coming up tomorrow is our Coffee with Core event starting at 10 a.m. Tomorrow. And you will have an opportunity to get to know our core student leadership team. On Wednesday is the clubs fair from 10 to 11. This is a great chance to connect with leaders of our student run clubs at Highline and learn a little bit about the club before joining a meeting. You can find the full ThunderWeek schedule at the cls.highline.edu/ThunderWeek site. And don't forget to follow CLS and CCIE on Facebook and Instagram to keep update on upcoming events and learn about us and our student leaders. And if email is more your speed, you can subscribe to our bi-weekly email newsletter. And with that, thank you everyone for attending, and we hope to see you soon. Take care, everyone.
Yes, thank you.